I'm about to open my first ever paycheck working as a junior doctor in the UK's National Health Service, the NHS, and we're going to find out if doctors are really paid £14 an hour. That's about $17.50, so not a lot, after 6 years of medical school and about £80,000 in student loan debt. It's a lot lower than what I thought, man. They've messed up the paycheck. So let's start off at the top of the pay slip. We have my assignment number, that's basically the internal number that the trust uses to pay me. And then we've got my employee name, and it's nice, to see Dr. Dev Gakar. Like every time I see it, it brings me a bit of joy. We've been working hard for so long on the wards when like nurses come in, they're like, oh, Dr. Dev, and you're like, damn, your boy's a doctor. And then we have my location where I'm working. I've obviously blurred this out because I don't want you guys to know. Next up we have my job title, and it says Foundation Year 1. For those of you guys that don't know, right after you finish medical school, which is about 5 or 6 years, you do 2 years of Foundation Year training where you do different specialties, and it's usually one specialty every 4 months. I'm in my first year of doing that because I just graduated. Like today, nurse walked into the room and was like, Dr. Dev, are you Dr. Dev? I was like, yeah. Can you prescribe some E45 cream for my patient? I was like, say no more. Say no more, G. After your 2 years, a lot of people tend to take 1 year out called the Foundation Year 3, where you do whatever you want. Some people locum, some people travel, some people take a break. And then you broadly decide if you want to specialize in medicine, surgery, or GP, and you enter the relevant pathways. But obviously it's a bit more complex than that, and I can delve into it in a later video if you guys want. Then we move on to my tax code, which is 1257L. Nice. The 1257 part basically means you get a total annual allowance of 12,570, which is tax-free. In the UK, we have income tax brackets. The first 12,570 is tax-free, then the amount up to 50k is taxed at 20%, then the amount up to 125k is taxed at 40%, and finally anything above 125k is taxed at 45%. Keep in mind that you're not actually taxed those percentages on the full salary. That means that if you earn 20k a year, you pay 0% tax on the first 12.5k and then pay 20% on the remaining amount. That makes it only 20% of 7.5k. I hope that makes sense. The second part, the L, is essentially just the government reminding you of the L that they're handing down to you. The department I'm working in right now is old age psychiatry, which is a 9 to 5 job, so 40 hours with no on-calls, no night shifts and no weekends, which a lot of my other doctor colleagues do have to do. And even though it's a 40-hour work week, there are some days where I come home feeling so tired that I just fall asleep. That's quite unheard of for me. It's hard to go about your day-to-day life without relying on too much caffeine. I say that while drinking coffee, but it's about having too much, which you start to get those side effects like being jittery. She poured out all the coffee beans and then she was like, oh, do you want a video of me putting the water in? I was like, alright, fine. Then she's like, do you want to try it? I was like, fine. So then I had a shot of espresso, very nice. I turned around, then she had another coffee out, and I was like, what's that? She was like, try it. I was like, alright. So then I tried that too. So essentially now I'm on 3 shots of coffee and it's like 6 p.m. I ain't sleeping tonight. If you look at my expected salary for the year, it states that it's £29,384. But if you wait towards the end of the video, I'll tell you why this figure is probably not very accurate. Then we move on to my gross pay. Within gross pay, I have 2 payments. The first is my basic payment. So this is for my standard 40-hour work week, which you can see I worked 168 hours in the month. And if you multiply that out by my hourly rate, which is £14, you get £2,369. It's right there. That's the proof that you guys want. There's a lot of misinformation out there, but first year doctors are paid £14 an hour, which isn't great. I literally earn more than even a second year doctor at my uni bar. How ridiculous is that? The second payment, the temporary work payment for £225, is because of my shadowing week. Before you start working as a doctor, Some trusts do it for 4 days, some trusts do it for a week, some do it for more. You have this shadowing period where you shadow the doctors that whose job you're going to take. And for some reason, they've paid me only for 2 days of that shadowing because I worked at this hospital. For 2 days, I worked at a different hospital. And so that hospital is going to pay me in, you're not even going to guess it, December. I don't know why it's so complicated. Why can't I just be paid now like all my colleagues? But I'm going to be paid in December for those 2 days. It's just stupid. That's just how the NHS is at this point, man. I'm not even like fighting it. In some other doctors' paychecks, you'll notice something called the London allowance. Basically, if you work in London, you get paid an extra £2,000 to go towards the increased living expenses in London. And per month, it works out to just over £100. Is it really enough? You think £100 is going to cover the increased costs of London? I don't know, it's something, but it's not a lot. Some people have night shifts here, so any unsociable hours that you work, which is outside the 9 to 5, broadly speaking, you get paid an enhanced rate of about 37%. And if you work weekends, you'd also be paid a little bit extra for that. So all of that stuff will be showed up here. And as I mentioned, I don't have that. So that's why I haven't received it. My gross income for the month was £2,595. But before you guys get too gassed, we're going to move on to the deductions because obviously nothing in the country is free. And here we have 3 different deductions. The first is the payee income tax. This was the whole 20% tax, 40% tax that I was on about. And the reason I was getting annoyed at the start of the video is that I've obviously earned only £2,595. Now that's less than the £12,000 yearly allowance that you get that is tax free. So the fact that I've been taxed on it is wrong. I shouldn't have been taxed. I should have paid 0 tax. Then we have the national insurance. Now this is a bit more complex to calculate, so I'm going to put it on screen, and I paid £185 for that. The final thing on here is the NHS pension, which broadly speaking is regarded as one of the better pensions in the UK compared to the private sector. You might have heard the doctor's gold pension pot and stuff like that. It is a nice pension pot, but obviously we have to wait 50 years for that when we retire at 79 or whatever it's gonna be. The contribution that we make depends on our salary. For the salary that I earned, I only contributed about 7.7%. As you earn more, you contribute a bit more. So my doctor colleagues earned a bit more and they maybe contributed 9.3%, 9.8%. Usually you would have another type of deduction called the student loan repayment, but my salary is basically too low to start making contributions towards that. I have a student loan of about £80,000, which is a lot. And in the UK, I think the threshold you start repaying it is about £27,000. And once you start earning that amount, you pay 9% of everything above that amount. So for the sake of explaining it, let's say the threshold is £1,000 of salary. If you earn £2,000, you'll be paying 9% of £1,000. So the difference between the 2,000 and the 1,000, not the overall salary that you earn. My total deductions worked out for this month to be an incorrect £640. To work out how much money actually enters my bank account, we have to look at the gross income of £2,595 and subtract the deductions, which was £640, and that gives you a total of £1,954, which is what entered my bank account today. The sick thing is that I'm with a bank called Monzo, and it's not sponsored or anything, but Monzo allows you to get paid 1 day early to your actual pay date. All my friends have not been paid yet, but your boy's got P in the account. Not for long though, and I will go through what I'm going to spend it on, but it's just nice to see. I've got this referral link for Monzo where you get £5, I get £5 too, so I will link it down below. Sign up to Monzo if you want to get your paycheck early. I should be a rep for Monzo, man. Now I'm going to tell you why this 1,954 figure is probably not an accurate predictor of what I'm going to be paid in the coming months. The first reason is because I was paid for shadowing this time, which isn't going to be a thing next month. And so most likely my predicted income is around £1,800. The second thing is that in 3 more months, so in December, I'm going to move on to my next rotation, which is gastroenterology. And then I'm going to move on to trauma and orthopedics. And those 2 specialties have a lot of on-calls, night shifts, and weekends. It's great I said night shifts properly this time. Because of that, I'm going to be earning those unsociable hour premiums that I mentioned earlier, some of that 37% for those hours. So this figure is probably going to go up by maybe a couple £100. That's my prediction. So what am I going to spend my first paycheck on? Well, the first thing is the boring old rent. and this works out to a total of £575. And you're probably wondering, wow, it's quite cheap. And yes, it's a lot lower than expected, and the reason is I couldn't actually find a one-bed apartment here, so I was practically forced to share, and it comes with all bills included. So 575 total. So I guess that's one perk of sharing. The next thing is a Amex credit card payment of £1,000. And yes, that's a lot, but I used the credit card just because of the perks offered. But you gotta make sure with the credit card is that you always pay the statement balance off in full every time, because otherwise you start accumulating high interest payments, and that is not a good thing. I've always paid my balance every month for the past 4 or 5 years, so make sure you do that. The reason this bill is so high is because it includes some of the expenses I had to incur for my medical elective, in which I went to Sydney, Australia. If you haven't seen the vlog, make sure you go check it out. It's banterous, humorous, educational, everything, man. Just go check it out if you already haven't. I went to Bali as well, and then I went to Catalonia. Obviously, that doesn't total to 1,000, it totaled to more, but this is just some of the leftover expenses I had. And obviously this month's expenditures as well. That leaves me with about £400 left, and some of that money is going to be spent towards buying my parents and my brother a small little gift, a little gesture, just to say thank you for all their support. It's my first paycheck, so I thought it'd be a nice thing to do. That leaves me with about £300, and that money is going to go straight into my investment portfolio in my stocks and shares ISA. And if you're interested in seeing my total investment portfolio as a doctor and YouTuber, and I think you should have a look, that video is going to be linked over there.